What do you feel when everyone around you is watching the big game, analyzing stats, debating teams? Excitement to join in, or a quiet sense of disconnection? Here's something you might not want to talk to anyone about. For you, watching sports doesn't feel like entertainment. It feels like watching something that should matter, but somehow doesn't. Not because you hate fun, not because you're antisocial, and not because you lack passion. We were taught from an early age that it is normal to be interested in sports. Sunday gatherings around the TV, office conversations about last night's game, wearing team colors on game day. And if you step outside that rhythm, the conclusion comes quickly. You're missing out. You're not one of us. But what if you create this invisible inner distance yourself? Not through how you see sports, but through how you see yourself. Because it's not actually about sports at all. It's about what captures attention. Every brain has one basic job: to decide what matters. Some brains do that by locking onto clear outcomes: points scored, games won, rankings changed. Others do it by tracking personal stakes, direct impact on their life, work, or relationships. Notice what happens during a big championship game. Some people instinctively lean forward. They track the ball. They feel the tension rise with the score. They celebrate or despair based on the outcome, not because they know the players personally, but because the structure itself creates emotional investment. Others instinctively check their phone. They notice the people around them more than the game. They wait for the moment to end so conversation can resume. From the outside, both groups look like they're in the same room. Inside, they're living in completely different worlds. For the first group, watching sports activates a reward circuit. For the second, it doesn't trigger that circuit at all. In 2017, researchers at Harvard's Intergroup Neuroscience Lab did something fascinating. They put die-hard Red Sox and Yankees fans inside an fMRI scanner, two teams that have hated each other since 1920. Then they showed them game clips. What they found was striking. Every time a fan's team scored, a specific brain region lit up like fireworks: the ventral striatum. This is the same area that responds to cocaine, to gambling wins, to unexpected money. It's your brain's addiction center. The dopamine floods in and says, "Do that again." But here's what surprised them most. When fans watched their rival team fail, even when it had no impact on their own team's success, that same reward circuit fired. Pure pleasure from someone else's loss. The researchers called it schadenfreude. Your brain treating a stranger's failure like your own victory. Now, this reveals something crucial about how sports fandom works neurologically. It's not just about celebrating wins. It's about an entire dopamine-driven feedback loop. Mirror neurons make you feel like you're playing. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing changes. And when your team scores, your testosterone actually rises by 20%. Not because you threw the ball, but because your brain treats watching as being there. This is why sports create such powerful attachment. Every goal becomes a dopamine hit. Every near miss keeps you hooked, like a slot machine that almost paid out. Variable rewards, the most addictive pattern known to neuroscience. But, and this is critical, this entire mechanism requires one thing to activate: personal stakes, a sense that the outcome matters to you. Without that connection, the dopamine doesn't release, the mirror neurons don't fire, the testosterone doesn't shift. Your brain scans the same scene and finds nothing to reward. Not because you lack the hardware, but because the software never installed the update that says, "This matters." But that only explains what happens on the surface. To understand why some people don't connect with sports, we need to look at what's happening inside. Because from the outside, not caring about sports can look like missing something obvious. But on the inside, something very specific is happening. When you watch a game, the ball moving, the crowd roaring, the scoreboard changing, your brain asks one question: does this outcome affect my life? For many people, the answer is yes. Their hometown pride, their childhood memories of watching with family, their sense of belonging to a community, their identity wrapped up in being a fan. All of these create stakes. But for people who don't obsess over sports, the brain scans that same scene and comes back with no direct connection. But this is not rejection. nor is it indifference, just the absence of personal stakes. This reveals a pattern of how differently our brains can learn in the same situation. Every time someone watches a game and feels that emotional surge, their brain marks it. This matters. Every time someone watches and feels nothing, their brain marks it differently. This doesn't. Over time, these marks become pathways. Now let's pause here for a moment, because this is where the real secret sits. The difference isn't that some people appreciate competition and others don't. The real difference is what happens when the outcome has no personal impact. Many people watch the competition and associate it with community belonging, with tribal identity, with the thrill of unpredictability, with nostalgia and tradition. People who don't obsess over sports experience that gap very differently. When the game ends and nothing in their life changes, they don't feel a loss, they feel clarity. Clarity about where their attention naturally flows without social pressure. Clarity about what genuinely engages them versus what they're expected to care about. Clarity about the difference between shared experience and forced enthusiasm. They don't confuse entertainment with meaning. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, let me slow down for a moment and speak directly to you. You might be the kind of person who walks into a room during a big game and immediately feels the energy shift. Not because you're against sports, but because your attention naturally goes elsewhere. You may have noticed that your most engaged moments don't happen around screens showing competitions. They happen in conversations where ideas build on each other. They happen when you're creating something, learning something, or solving something. They happen when the stakes are real, not symbolic. Maybe you've had moments like this. You sit down to watch a game because everyone else is. And at first there's that familiar question, should I care about this? Am I missing something? And then, without effort, something shifts. Your mind drifts to that project you're working on, the conversation you had earlier that's still unfinished, the book you want to read, the problem you want to solve, the person you want to reach out to. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when your attention system finally has enough space to show you what it actually values. This is why not obsessing over sports isn't indifference. It's how your system protects what genuinely matters to you. And once you recognize this, something important changes. You begin to trust that your attention, even if it looks disconnected from the outside, is actually deeply selective. But here's what this means in the bigger picture. We live in a culture that equates watching sports with social belonging, team loyalty with identity, game day rituals with community. But the attention system doesn't work that way. People who don't obsess over sports aren't rejecting connection. In many cases, they're doing something most people rarely allow themselves to do. They're honoring what genuinely engages them. They track outcomes that directly impact their life. They invest energy in relationships where both sides are present. This is why people who don't obsess over sports connect based on the focus of their own aspirations and the clarity of their priorities. Engagement for them isn't measured by how loudly they cheer. It's measured by how clearly they recognize what actually moves them. And this is why calling it apathy misses the point entirely. Not obsessing over sports doesn't feel like missing out to them. It feels like clear choosing presence over performance. A mind that doesn't mistake excitement for meaning. A person who doesn't need external drama to feel engaged with life. With this understanding, you don't just stop feeling guilty about not caring. You recognize that your indifference to sports is actually deep selectivity about where your energy goes. People like you aren't doing less. They're doing something different. And once you understand that difference, the guilt fades. The need to fake interest softens. And not watching the game stops feeling like something you have to explain. It begins to be something you recognize and accept with joy in yourself. Your attention isn't broken. It's just tuned to a different frequency.